This is the data entry portion of Module 4 of IDIS online training for CDBG entitlement grantees. In this video, we will walk through the process of adding a public facility activity that meets the low mod area national objective. The best way to learn IDIS is to get hands-on practice. I want to encourage you to log into the UAT version of IDIS and enter the data as you follow the video. You can pause this video at any time using the pause button in the lower left-hand corner. You can switch back and forth between this video and IDIS by holding down the Alt key on your keyboard and then pressing the Tab key. If you're not already logged into the UAT version of IDIS, pause the video and do so now. You'll know if you're in the UAT version if you see UAT at the top of the screen. If you are unsure of how to access the UAT, there are directions on accessing this version of the system at the bottom of the IDIS login page and also in Module 1 of this course. I will be using the data found in Case Study 3 of the course materials. You can use the case study or simply make up the data as you go along. Assignment 1 of our case study states that you are in the beginning of your 2010 program year and you need to add the Brightwood Street Improvements activity to IDIS and fund it. In Assignment 2, we will report accomplishments for this activity over multiple years. We'll start at the home page of IDIS. To add an activity, we will click on Projects Activities in the navigation menu. The system by default shows the Search Activities page. This is used to find existing activities in the system. We don't want to look for an existing activity, we need to add a new activity. If you look to the left, you will see all of your options under Projects Activities module. Under Activity, you should see a link labeled Add. If you don't see this, your user profile may not have permission to add activities, in which case you need to talk to your local administrator to obtain this permission. Once you click on the link, the system will take you to the Add Activity page where we can start entering data. If you're following along in your course manual, we are on page 3-2. Most users can skip past the Activity Owner field as it will default to the correct grantee. The next field is Program Year. Click on the drop-down arrow and select the year you want. If you don't see the correct year, this most likely means you have not yet set up projects for that year. You need to add your projects first, then come back and add your activities. In this case study, we set up our projects under 2010. In the next field, you will select the project that you want to associate with this activity. If you completed Module 2 of this course, you should see the projects you added. If you did not complete Module 2, for the purpose of this training, you can select any project. The next field is Activity Name. It's a good idea to establish a naming convention that will help you quickly identify what each activity is. The activity name shows up on a lot of public CAPER reports, so try to use a descriptive name that an average person reading the CAPER would be able to understand. The Grantee/PJ Activity ID is another field that can help you identify the activity. This is an optional field. HUD does not require it. Many grantees populate this field with information that will help them reconcile their IDIS information and their local financial records, such as a contract number, purchase order number, or local accounting code. The next field is very important. If you click on the Activity Category field for CDBG, you will see a long list of all of the eligible uses of CDBG and their corresponding matrix codes. It is very important to select the most appropriate matrix code here because the system will prompt us for different sets of information based on the matrix code we select. The public facility and infrastructure matrix codes begin with 03. For our case study, the most appropriate matrix code is 03K, Street Improvements. If you are having a hard time choosing the right matrix code, refer to Appendix A of the training manual for some guidance and descriptions of each code. If you can't find a code that fits nicely with your public facility or infrastructure activity, you can use 03, Public Facilities General. But HUD only wants you to use this code as a last resort. The next field is Environmental Assessment. You will want to check with whoever in your office is responsible for environmental review. For our case study, I will choose Complete. To the right of the environmental assessment, you will see a field called Allow another organization to access this activity. You only need to provide this information if you will be giving IDIS access to a subrecipient so they can add their own data to the system. In general, CDBG grantees don't provide IDIS access to their subrecipients, so let's skip past this field. The last field is the description. HUD has not provided any guidance on the amount of detail you need here, so just use common sense. The main audience for this information is your HUD CPD representative, so you may want to discuss with them the level of detail they would like to see. For the case study, I'll put in a short sentence describing how CDBG funds will be used. If you have the description in another document on your computer, you can use copy and paste. Once you are done providing the data, let's click Save at the bottom. If you provided all of the required data, you should see a Activity Saved message at the top of the screen. If you missed a required field, the system will prompt you for that information before it will let you save the screen. A quick note about required fields. The fields marked as required are the fields that the system will make you populate before you save the screen. There are many fields that are not required by the system that your HUD CPD representative will want to see answered so they can get a full picture of how the funds are being used. Once this first page is saved, the system will assign an IDIS activity ID to the activity. You may want to write down this number, as it is a quick way to find the activity in the system. You will also see that the system added some additional fields, including the activity status, which defaults to open, the completion date, and the initial funding date. You will also see a column in the activity category table called Ready to Fund. In the row for CDBG, it says Ready to Fund is No. This means we still need to provide more data and complete activity setup before we can commit funds and draw money against this activity. To complete activity setup, we'll click on the button in the Setup Detail column called Add CDBG. Here's the first page of Setup Detail. In the manual, we are on page 3-5. The type of data we need to collect will depend on the national objective we select, which is the first field on this page. It is extremely important to select the most appropriate matrix code and national objective. If you click on the drop-down for national objective, you will see a list of the national objectives that correspond with the selected matrix code. The system will limit your choice of national objective based on the matrix code we selected on the first page. If you don't see the national objective you want, chances are you selected the wrong matrix code. Our next field is accomplishment type. You will see that the system is not giving us a choice here. It is saying that based on our selected matrix code and national objective, we have to measure people. Specifically, HUD wants us to measure the total number of persons who live in the service area of the activity. Make sure to include all of the people who live in the area, not just the low and moderate income population. If you are basing the national objective on census data, you can use the population of your targeted census tracts and block groups for this field. HUD allows grantees to space the proposed benefits over more than 1 year if the grantee feels that the project will take more than 1 year to complete. You can space the goals over multiple years by pressing the Add Another Year button. The system will give you a new row to input the goal for the second year. For our streets project, let's assume that we estimate the project will be finished in the next program year, 2011. We could report 0 for 2010 and add a new year for 2011, but it's not necessary. We can simply enter the information for 2011. The next two fields relate to HUD's performance measurement framework. If you want more information on performance measurement, there is a lot of material on the HUD CPD website. This information should also be included in your annual action plan. The objective is used to indicate why you are undertaking the activity. For this activity, I will choose Suitable Living Environment. There is no right answer here, and it's somewhat subjective. You will want to be consistent with how you classified the activity in your action plan. The outcome is used to indicate what we hope to achieve by undertaking the activity. Again, there is no right or wrong answer here. HUD will accept your selection as long as you have a rationale for your choice. Next is the address field. For this field, HUD wants to know what area of the community is receiving a benefit. For our streets project, we can put in the range of blocks of the street work. Once you have provided the address information, you want to click on Validate this address. If the system is able to validate the address, you can click on this icon and get some information about the address provided. In some cases, the system will not be able to validate the address, in which case you can skip the validation process at this time. The next section is labeled Activity Purpose and contains 4 yes/no questions that describe who will benefit from the activity. Answer yes or no based on the type of activity you are carrying out. In our case study, we can leave everything as no. On the right side of the screen is a section labeled Associate to another activity with the question, will accomplishments be reported at another activity? You can use this field when you have more than one activity in IDIS for the same scope of work. This feature is not often used for public facilities. It is more common to use it for program delivery activities associated with housing and economic development. You will use the next section to indicate who is carrying out the activity. If the grantee is carrying out the activity with its own staff or through contractors, you will answer yes to the first question, and then choose one of the selections from the drop-down on the right. If the activity is being carried out by a subrecipient or other entity, you will answer no to the first question. When you do so, you will see the information below become active, at which point you can click on Select Organization to choose your subrecipient and select the type of organization from the drop-down on the right. For the case study, we will answer yes to the first question and select Grantees and Contractors from the drop-down. The next section is Target Area. While the field is not required, it is important to provide this information when it is applicable. You will see 3 types of target areas available from the drop-down: CDFI, Local, and Strategy. There is more information on each in Appendix E of your manual. CDFI stands for Community Development Financial Institution. It's the least common target area. You will only select it if a CDFI is carrying out the activity and is utilizing the regulatory flexibility provided for CDFIs under the CDBG regulations. The local target areas are defined by the grantee and do not require HUD approval. A local target area would be any area where the grantee is making a concentrated effort to improve the area. Grantees may want to refer to their action plan, which should list any target areas. If a grantee uses this feature, the PR84 report will summarize your accomplishments for each target area. Grantees should only select Strategy Area when the activity is undertaken as part of a Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy Area, or NRSA. NRSAs are approved by HUD as part of the Con Plan or Action Plan. For the case study, let's assume that this street activity is part of a larger effort focused on the Brightwood neighborhood, where the city is carrying out aggressive code enforcement, housing rehabilitation, and other public facility improvements. I'll select Local Target Area from the drop-down. If the target area has already been added to the system, you'll see it in the Area Name drop-down. If you don't see it, click on Add New Area. The next screen lists all of the existing target areas. I will click on the Add button to add a new area to the list. On the next screen, I will give the area name, indicate the type of target area, and click Save. When I return to the Setup Details screen, I should now see that target area as a choice. The next section is called Special Characteristics, and you simply check the box next to each field if it applies. If you are not sure if they apply or not, refer to page 3-9 in your manual. If you place a check next to Brownfield Redevelopment, the system will prompt you to indicate how many acres are being remediated. The next section is a collection of checkboxes that relate to specific regulatory requirements of the CDBG program. Go ahead and check any of these if they apply based on the nature of your project. If the activity will involve one-for-one replacement or displacement, you will see some narrative fields during the completion of the activity that can be used to describe how the grantee complied with these requirements. If you check float funded, the system will prompt you for additional information regarding the float funding at the bottom of the screen. Once you're done, you'll see our options at the bottom. If we click Save, the system will save the data and return us to the previous screen. However, we still need to add more data before setup is complete. So we want to click Save and Continue. This will take us to page 2 of Setup Detail. If we hit Cancel, the system will not save any of our changes and take us back to the previous page. Here's the second page for Setup Detail. Again, notice that the matrix code is listed at the top of the page. The fields that this system is displaying are based on the matrix code and national objective we selected. For this low mod area activity, we see a question asking census or survey. The system is asking how we determined that our service area meets the low mod income threshold. For our case study, we will use census. If you follow along with your own data, you will want to determine some eligible census tracts and block groups for your jurisdiction. The next section asks for the budget of the activity. Notice that the CDBG field is grayed out. Once you draw funds against this activity, the system will populate that field for you. You'll also notice that these fields are not required by the system to complete the screen. This is because some of the activities that you carry out may be fully funded by CDBG, in which case these fields would be blank. If the activity does have other funds involved, it is very important to provide this information. One of the ways that the CDBG program is evaluated at the federal level is its ability to leverage funds. If filled out correctly, this section helps demonstrate that CDBG funds are in fact leveraging other available dollars. At the time of activity setup, you may not know the final budget for an activity. HUD has stated that it's permissible to provide budget estimates at this point. Our case study states that $750,000 of additional funding from state and local sources will be leveraged for this activity. Once you have provided information here and the activity has drawn CDBG funds, the system will calculate a leveraging ratio for the activity. The next section collects data on how the CDBG funds are being distributed to beneficiaries. In our case study, the funds will be used by the grantee to pay its contractors. None of the beneficiaries will receive grants or loans, so we can leave this section blank. The third, fourth, and fifth page of setup are only used for low mod area activities. On these pages, we will specify the service area for our low mod area. Step 1 is to select the county. Once you select the county, you can click the Save Page button. When the page reloads, you will see an opportunity to edit the census tracts for that county. Click the Add Edit Census Tract button. On the fourth page, the system displays all of the census tracts for the county selected. Select the census tracts that you want to include in your service area and move them to the Selected column by clicking the Select button. Once you have selected your census tracts, click on the Select Block Groups button to move to the next page. On the fifth page, the system displays all of the census tracts selected. On this page, you will indicate what portions or block groups of the census tracts are within the service area by placing a check next to each that applies. If the entire census tract is in the service area, click All and don't click any of the specific block groups. If only a portion of the census tract is within the service area, place a check next to each block group that is part of the service area. When finished, click the Save and Return to Previous Page button. you will be taken back to page 4. Click on the Save and Return to the previous page again to return to page 3. Back on the third page, the bottom section will calculate the low mod percentage of the selected area. Click on the Calculate % Low Mod button. When the system refreshes, the percentage will be displayed. If all went well, it will be over 51%, or if you're an upper quartile grantee, whatever your upper quartile threshold is. The final step is to click Save to return to the first page. If everything went well, we now see that the activity is ready to fund. The system gives you a button that will take you straight to the activity funding screen for this activity. At this point, go ahead and fund the activity. Then create a drawdown. The next section of this module will demonstrate how to report accomplishments and complete this activity. For step-by-step guidance for the activity funding and drawdown, refer to the video for the funding and drawdown module.